In today's video, I am going to be sharing a problem-solving framework which all the big consulting companies, McKinsey, BCG, Bain, Deloitte, etc., will only teach you in their training sessions after you have made it into their firm. So that way it's quite proprietary. Imagine अगर तुम्हें पहले से ये framework आता हो case interviews के time. Hi everyone, welcome to Insider Gyan. मेरा नाम सौमी है. I'm an IIT Delhi and ISB Hyderabad grad, and I have actually worked in consulting for 8+ years. Only recently I moved on. On this channel, I share a lot about my career experiences, but also a lot about consulting case studies. In the recent past, some of those videos have done really well, and the feedback that I've gotten is I should do more of them. I realized that I have never really shared a proper strategic problem-solving framework जिसको आप अपने back of the mind में रख सकते हो when you are doing case interviews, and it's going to make your life really easy. So that is what I'm going to share in this video. And the next one, this video is going to be broken down into 2 parts to keep it to digestible lengths. So basically, case studies are all about problem solving, and problem solving is all about breaking down a bigger problem into smaller digestible parts and solving each of them one by one. It needs a bit of structuring the problem, understanding what the problem statement is that you are solving, identifying the issues, then of course analyzing data, etc. So problem solving basically has 4 key steps to it. And in this video, we are going to go through each of those 4 steps while taking an example of a growth strategy case. So to begin with, what are the 4 steps of problem solving? Number 1, and very important, is defining the problem. Number 2 is structuring the problem and identifying the issues. Number 3 is actually conducting the analysis using data, other information that you have. And number 4, based on what you find in step 3, drafting the set of recommendations. So सबसे पहले let's start with defining the problem. Now, if anything, right, this is the basis of solving a case. Defining a problem is probably the most important step, because unless you know what you are solving, you will never be in the right direction when you are identifying the issues or conducting the analysis. So this is the basic foundation which you absolutely need to get correct. Defining a problem will include a few components like, the scope of the issue kya hai, what is the scope of the issue, also what are the success criteria, are there any constraints, who are the stakeholders, those kind of things. And most important for defining the problem is it should be SMART. What do I mean by SMART? SMART is an acronym. जैसे आप goal setting करते हो जब, तब आपने SMART acronym के बारे में सुना होगा. SMART basically stands for specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and lastly time bound. And we'll see how your problem definition needs to be SMART in the example. But essentially, at the start of every case interview, you should always ask the interviewer about the objective of the case, right? कुछ objective तो case context से clear होगा, but then you should always clarify, is there any other objective? And this question is important to define the problem statement for the case. So a growth strategy के case में what could be a good definition of the problem? Something like, how do we grow at a rate of 10% by the year 2025? A growth strategy के case में what can be a good problem statement, right? It can be something like how to achieve a 10% growth for your client by the year 2025. Now you will see that it is quite smart that way. It's measurable because of the 10% figure. It's specific because it's talking only about growth and with a particular number in place. It's also time bound because it's asking for the growth rate by 2025. So that's a good example. A bad example could be something like how to make the company grow by 5%, or how can our client grow, which industries can our client enter to grow. I mean, that could also be a problem statement depending on the like the case context, but the growth strategy ke case mein, this is a good example. Moving to step number 2, that is structuring the problem and identifying the issues. Now this is where all the case frameworks that I keep sharing on this channel, or you will see in case books, this is where it comes into play, like defining a framework, and across each element of the framework you define what the issues are that could be the problem why our client is not able to grow at 10% right now. So what is the important thing to do in this step is, number one, identifying all the issues, and number two, to develop a hypothesis for each of the issues. Why is issue number one happening? You develop a hypothesis, and that is very important, which is what I want to spend the next 1 minute on. Most consulting companies these days focus on hypothesis-based consulting. What this means is, based on the initial level of data that you have, you develop a hypothesis कि ये प्रॉब्लम क्यों हो रहा होगा. You develop a hypothesis based on what information you have, and then you prove or disprove the hypothesis. To prove or disprove the hypothesis, you will need data and you will need to conduct some analysis. Now, why is this a much more efficient process? Is because the other way is to sort of boil the ocean. जैसे कि आपको कोई प्रॉब्लम मिल गया, आपका एक अप्रोच हो सकता है कि आप दुनिया भर का डेटा उस कंपनी के बारे में गैदर करो. अबाउट द इंडस्ट्री यू गैदर ऑल द डेटा इन द वर्ल्ड विदाउट हैविंग एनी इनिशियल सेंस ऑफ व्हाट द प्रॉब्लम कुड बी. यू रैंडमली डू डेटा एनालिसिस एंड ट्राई टू फिगर आउट कि ओके, दिस कुड ऑल्सो बी एन इशू, दिस कुड ऑल्सो बी एन इशू, एंड फॉर दैट यू विल नीड अ लॉट मोर डेटा, which in most of the cases in real life you will not have the luxury of. And secondly, to boil the ocean, it will take you a much longer time to pinpoint on some of the specific solutions. So it's very inefficient, and most of the cases while consultants are talking to client, and clients also have an initial hypothesis of what the issues could be. That is why there's a lot of focus these days on hypothesis-based consulting, hypothesis-based case solving. The next thing to note is, when you are defining the issues for a particular problem, they need to be MECE. I don't know if you have heard MECE. It's a very commonly used consulting term again. MECE is MECE, which means mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive, which means आपके जो different issues है, there shouldn't be any overlap on them, and the issues that you define need to be exhaustive in nature. Otherwise, there's a chance that you are missing out on identifying some of the issues which could actually be a problem. You can actually read up, MECE is a very common term. You can read up a little bit on Google to understand more about what we mean by MECE. And once you have all your MECE issues, that is when firstly you will obviously prioritize the issues, क्योंकि you can't be doing everything at the same time, and you will obviously have a sense of these 5 issues are primary, these 3 are probably secondary, these 2 are tertiary, etc. And then based on that you will develop a hypothesis for each of the issues, and then find the data to support or like prove or disprove your hypothesis. So in growth strategy, now coming to the example, growth strategy के case में what could be some of the issues? Now the issues are going to be dependent on the growth strategy framework, which I have already shared on this channel, so I'm not going to talk about it. But let's talk about what could be some of the hypotheses, right? Every issue will have an hypothesis attached to it. What could be some of the reasons why your client is currently not able to grow at a rate that they want to grow at? Hypothesis number 1 could be that the industry itself is not growing as fast, and hence your client is not able to grow as fast as well. Number 2 could also be that customers' preferences for your product has changed, and that's why they are not really buying your product anymore. Hypothesis number 3 could also be that some of your competitors are actually grabbing your share by doing something better, maybe better marketing, or maybe pricing the product better, or maybe including some differentiating factor into their product. And hypothesis number 4, it could also be that there is actually some internal problem within your own supply chain as well, which is why you're not, like, there's enough demand from the customers, but you're not able to supply enough to meet the demand. That could also be a hypothesis. There could honestly be a lot more hypotheses, and that's the number of hypotheses is definitely going to be dependent on the case context. But for the sake of the 2 videos that we are doing on problem solving, let's consider this set of 4 hypotheses. With that, I'm going to end part 1 of the video. Next week, let's discuss the other 2 items that are there, which is data analysis and recommendations. We will carry forward with the same example. So if you found this video helpful, please do like it and subscribe to the channel, and do come back for part 2, which is going to release on Friday. Bye.